Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. In this video, I'm going to be discussing my findings from a recent track event that I took this Kawasaki Ninja ZX-4RR to. I was able to get a couple sessions in. The bike was mostly stock. The only difference from stock was we had a full exhaust on it, and Alex, one of our engineers, was able to put a tune on it already. And we decided that it'd be a good time to go shake down the bike in its current form so we could deliver to you what we felt at the track. Alex got to ride it, I got to ride it, we switched off, we chased each other on a different bike, and we were able to form some opinions about this bike and put big old smiles on our faces. I'm gonna try to keep this as organized as possible for you. We're gonna go through ergonomics, chassis, the suspension, brakes, power delivery, tires, electronics, and the overall feel of the bike. Let's get going. So ergonomics is the first thing I choose to talk about anytime I'm reviewing a motorcycle, because whether you're standstill or riding, it's something you notice right away. If you're a larger rider, if you're a smaller rider, all those things affect you. So when I threw my leg over this bike, I immediately noticed that I was a little bit cramped. Now, I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm 185 pounds. When I straddle this thing, I do feel a little bit cramped. The bars are a little too close to me. It's just a very street-oriented package. Now, my background, late couple of years, has been mostly track riding and racing, so I may be a little biased. I do ride street here and there, I ride dirt, but most of all, it's track experience that I'm comparing this to. So for me, it was a little bit cramped. Around corners, the foot clearance here was very, very small. By the time I got to my third session, I was really leaning this thing into corners and I was scraping my boot, and I had to reposition my feet. I had to stay really, really on tippy toes on these pegs. So everything just felt a little cramped and you know, not track oriented enough for myself. Now, if you're a smaller rider, if you're not leaning it over as far, it'll be good just the way it is. I intend to change this bike quite a bit, make it basically into a race-only oriented machine once we're done with all the street projects we have for it. So you will see the evolution of the ergonomics on this bike, and I will have more to say about that. In the short term, I know we'll be changing the clip-ons, and we will be going with race bodywork, but in the interim, we're probably going to be getting rid of some of the internal paneling here so we can lower the bars, put them on a less sweeping angle, push them out for me to have a little bit more control over the bike, a little bit more torque on the steering. Immediately after one of our vendors, Woodcraft, releases some rear sets for this thing, we will be going with rear sets because I want to go up slightly and then back. Now, seat positioning here, I do feel like I personally, at my height and my riding style, I would benefit from this seat being much higher. I would say right about here and a little bit flatter so I could scoop my butt back a little bit more. It would definitely uncramp my leg angle here and make it feel a lot more comfortable going into corners, braking sections where I need to clamp here on the tank. That would also be improved. Now, beyond that, I feel like the bike's cockpit is very comfortable here with the cutouts in the tank. You have really nice anchoring positions for your forearms and your inner elbow area. It's really well designed, I think. The windscreen here leaves a bit to be desired. I feel like it should come back a little bit more and be a little bit taller. I found it very difficult to get myself hidden behind it, and I basically had my chin slammed against a tank here, and then there was still a pretty big void here. Now, I am a taller rider, but on these bikes, when I need to tuck in, I do scoot back, so my head was really here, and the airflow wasn't really coming over my helmet. I was getting a little bit of buffeting, but one of our partner companies, Zero Gravity, already delivered us a new windscreen that will hide me a little bit better, so we'll try that out next track day and move on from there. Let's go on to chassis. Now, this was the first track event on this bike, and everything was pretty much stock on it, so I didn't really get to really high-end pace on this thing. So I'm not gonna get into chassis too much, because chassis, at the pace I was riding it, was not really delivering much of a feedback to me. So let's just talk about geometry instead. Chassis seems solid at the pace I was riding. Now the geometry is, I think, one of the magical points of this particular bike. This thing feels like a razor. You point, you shoot, you whack the throttle open, and the thing just holds its turn. No understeer, no oversteer, beautiful. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I was riding at a lower pace than I normally would have had I known the bike, had it set for my expectations, had some time developing it. But I have to say, this thing is so pleasing to the rider, for me as a rider, I suppose. I think most people of a very broad experience level can take advantage of the smoothness and precision of the steering and the geometry. All right, let's talk about suspension. This is a stock bike, stock suspension. It's not very tunable. It has preload adjustment on the front. It's got preload on the rear. It does have damping adjustments on the rear. The spring on the rear is definitely undersprung for me and my riding style. If you're just putt-putting, if you're just riding the streets, if you're riding a passenger, that's probably an appropriate spring for you, depending on your weight and how aggressive you are. But for track riding, for myself, for trying to get to pace, it's soft. The damping, we were able to get it sort of close, but I think I require a different shim stack in both front and rear. I don't even know if the front has shims or if it's a damper rod setup. We'll see once we get in there. We won't be getting in there until we get some proper cartridges. Like I said, the front has only a few adjustments that you can make, and they did not make a difference for me. I didn't even mess with it too much, because it's not in the range. So we'll have to come back to that next track day. For now, I know that I can just go have some fun with this bike, with this suspension, but I can't demand too much out of it. Every stab of the brake, the thing was dancing. Every direction change, I noticed that I had to be like super smooth and fluid. On some areas where there's a switchback turn, I had to be going into this turn and then already shifting my weight, and just sort of like being ahead of myself to not over demand from the bike what I need the bike to feel from me. Now brakes is, now this is a sort of a controversial subject here in the videos that we've done in the past. I typically ride on the track and race on the track with no ABS. That is my preference. If you go into any race paddock, that will also be most riders' preference. Now these machines come by default with ABS. You cannot get them without ABS, at least at this point in 2023. Now for me, with the ABS, there's just a disconnect. You press the brakes and there's this rubbery feeling. There's a whole bunch of hose. There's a whole bunch of steel line that contains really long volumes of fluid. If there's any little bubble here and there, that will compress. The hose will expand, and that takes up some of the work that you're doing by pressing your lever. That makes for that numb feel. What added to the numb feel for me were the stock levers. For some reason, with my giant mitts, these things are just not, they don't play nice with my hands. I always like a shorty lever with this sort of sharper angle here. I use one finger on the brakes usually. Once we swap to the Womatech levers that we have here in stock, that really helped me feel better about the brake, but there's still that numbness that comes from ABS. So what I'll be doing is eliminating the ABS from this bike, getting rid of that. Luke McCracken over at Cormoto built us this line set that will replace the front. We also have a rear from him. This will be the entire fluid containing system that delivers the work done here in the Master to our calipers. And I will be going with a Brembo Master just because that is the setup that I like and I feel the most comfortable with it. Like I said, the smaller bikes don't require that much braking. Typically, obviously this This thing is poised to go really, really fast. So it probably will need more braking than the Ninja 400, but that's already taken care of with the dual calipers, dual discs. We will just change the feel, and I can report on that in the next set of videos. Rear brake felt just fine. The limited amount of times that I hit the rear brake or drag it around corners or whatnot to just adjust little things, even with the numb feeling, a little rubber expansion feeling that you get from hoses, not a big deal. That's totally doable. Nothing really needs to be done there. We will do the stainless steel braided line just because we do them in sets. But as far as it needing to be done, I don't think it's an absolute must. Now, on the power delivery, we did not ride this bike on the track in its pure stock form. So those of you guys that are wondering about how this bike is out of the box, I mean, we rode it up and down the block, we rode it around the neighborhood. It's definitely neutered. Our dyno video that we have on our YouTube channel will demonstrate that. You can see the dyno charts there. You can also see the dyno charts on our website, tstindustries.com. We have all that stuff detailed there. In the form that we took this to the track, I think the peak horsepower was shifted way up in the range because we deneutered the bike essentially and tuned it for this exhaust. I think the peak horsepower was right around 75 horsepower, something like that. Something that's pretty nice on a machine of 400cc type. I was able to stretch this thing's legs. Roebling Road Raceway, where we went with this thing, does have a nice long straightaway. I was able to hit 132 miles an hour indicated on the dash. There is some error in that. I'm approximating about 128 miles an hour. Now that's not all out what this bike can handle kind of speed. This is just what was possible on that day, on that straightaway, by me being the rider. I know I can stretch those legs even more once I get comfortable on this bike. We get into a couple of things there. Probably looking at 140, 145 indicated. We'll see what the future holds. If you keep watching our videos, we will be able to deliver that to you. Smoothness of that power delivery, I gotta say, I have not ridden a smoother bike in a long time. Now, I've raced R6s, R1s, Ninja 400s, R3s, limited time on the R7. I think the power delivery on this thing is like silk, you know? I love it. And it puts a big smile on my face, and I think you'll love it too. The tires, obviously most people change tires, especially if you take it to the track. We went to the track with the stockers, and I was just astonished, all right? I usually don't ride this type of tire. I usually go to race tires by default. I just feel most comfortable knowing I have maximum amount of grip there. I went to the track with these bone stock tires, and I had a great time. They held just fine. I found their limit a couple places, but they let me know they were at the limit. They did not just let go. It was very predictable. They tipped in and held just perfectly. They're really good tires, I gotta say. Hats off to Bridgestone. Now, last topic, electronics. I did not really mess with the electronics too much. I said, Alex, set it on kill and let's go. So this thing's got a TFT display, which I don't care about. You can put a analog gauge on there and I'm good. It's got all these options. I just want basics, you know? Traction control, cool if I can use it. I don't think I got it to that pace. Quick shifter and blipper. Now, I found some limitations to the blipper. It could have been user error. I still have some learning to do on this machine. When it worked really well. It worked really smooth. It really enhanced my ride, but I could not get it to work consistently, personally. So I will have to do a little bit more research on that. By that, I mean a whole bunch of riding, and I will report back on what all that means. I think we should do a follow-up video at some point and let you guys know the nitty-gritty on what we found since this video. That's pretty much it. That was a lot of yapping. I hope you found this informative, and I hope it helps you make a selection in case you're looking for a new bike. I love this bike. This thing puts a big old smile on my face. It doesn't work me like it should, thinking this is an over 400-pound machine. It feels light and nimble, and it rides beautifully. So if you're considering one of these bikes, I say go for it. It's an awesome machine. Thank you for watching. Check out tstindustries.com. We have a whole bunch of parts for this bike. If I piqued your interest in the flash tune and the exhaust. We will be offering exhaust. We're already offering the tune service. We have an unrestricted, just basic unrestricted tune for stock exhaust configuration, and then we have a built stage 1 tune for a full exhaust, as well as an air filter. We couple all those things up, put it on your ECU, send it back to you, and you're ready to go. Anyway, thanks for watching yet again. See you later. Ride safe.